They say betrayal doesn't scream, it whispers. Mine came on a humid Thursday afternoon, wrapped in the nervous fidgeting of a teenager I'd sworn to protect. I was sitting in my office at Horizon Haven, a youth outreach center tucked into one of the rougher corners of Milwaukee. The place had been my life's work. My name is Daniel Mercer, former social worker, now director, and on that particular day, I thought my biggest concern would be whether the grant application for our mental health program would get approved. Then I heard the knock. It was soft, hesitant, like the hand behind it wasn't sure it deserved to be heard. "Come in," I said, not looking up from the file I was reviewing. The door creaked open and there he was. Tyrell, 16, tall for his age, lanky and sharp-eyed. He shifted from foot to foot like the floor itself made him uneasy. "You all right?" I asked, gesturing to the chair in front of my desk. He hesitated, then sat. But his eyes didn't meet mine. They flicked to the floor, to the bookshelf, to the photos of former residents who'd made it out and gone on to build real lives. "Not here. Not like this." I saw something," he said finally. "Okay," I said carefully. Tyrell wasn't the kind to waste my time. He'd been with us for almost a year, quiet, observant, always keeping a low profile. For him to initiate this conversation meant it was serious. His hand twitched at the hem of his hoodie sleeve. "It's about Mrs. Mercer." My throat went dry. My wife, Lauren. She used to volunteer here, used to drop off homemade snacks, help kids write resumes, laugh loud in the kitchen during Friday lunches. But lately, her visits had grown scarce. "Too much work at the firm," she'd said. "Tight deadlines. New clients." I believed her, wanted to believe her. "What about her?" I asked, leaning forward slightly. "She dropped off your lunch yesterday," he said slowly, choosing every word like it might detonate. "I was shooting hoops by the gate, and she didn't come in." I nodded, waiting. "She was with someone. That tall white guy drives the black Tesla? I've seen him before. Thought maybe he was your friend." The blood drained from my face. I knew who he meant. Brandon. We'd gone to college together. He'd been the best man at our wedding. "They were by his car," Tyrell continued. "And they kissed. Not like a friend kiss." Silence fell between us. I wanted to tell him he was mistaken, that the glare on the windshield played tricks on his eyes, that he didn't know what he saw. But I couldn't. Not because I believed him, though I did, but because I'd already suspected. My wife had stopped touching me 3 months ago. Her kisses were cold. Her hugs, perfunctory. Her eyes slid away from mine when she thought I wasn't looking. I kept a still face. Years of counseling had trained me well. "Are you absolutely sure?" He looked up then, for the first time since he'd entered the room. "You always tell us that the truth hurts, but lies destroy." I didn't want to be the guy to mess things up, but I'd feel worse staying quiet. The air between us shifted. I nodded once, slowly. "Thank you, Tyrell. You did the right thing." His shoulders eased, like a weight had slipped off his back. But mine grew heavier, much heavier. I spent the next 20 minutes helping him draft a personal statement for his college applications, pretending like the world hadn't just tilted beneath my feet. But the second he left, I closed the door, sat down in the chair he just vacated, and stared out the window. Lauren, Brandon, what were they doing kissing in the center's parking lot like they had nothing to hide? And how long had I been blind? I didn't drive straight home that night. Instead, I parked a few blocks away and sat there in the dark, engine off, listening to the low hum of the streetlights and the occasional passing car. My hands stayed on the steering wheel long after it stopped needing them. Part of me hoped I'd imagined the whole thing, that Tyrell had misunderstood. But that part of me was shrinking fast. Eventually, I went inside. Our house was quiet, warm. Too warm. The kind of warmth you build to hide cold things. I could smell garlic and rosemary from the kitchen, and the clatter of a knife on a cutting board echoed softly through the halls. Lauren stood at the island, chopping vegetables. Her blonde hair was tied back, sleeves rolled up, wedding ring catching the light. She didn't look up. "You're late," she said, not unkindly, just stating a fact. Dinner's almost ready. Had some paperwork to finish? I replied, hanging my jacket by the door. Kids are pushing hard to get their college stuff in early this year. She nodded, slid carrots into a pot. How was your day? I asked, voice steady. Busy. Brandon and I prepped the slides for the biotech summit next week. He mentioned you, actually. Asked why you never come to lunch with us anymore. I watched her closely as she spoke. Noticed the way her eyes stayed fixed on the cutting board, her back straight but stiff. Her shoulders flinched just a fraction when I said, Funny. Tyrell said he saw him at the center yesterday. The knife paused mid-slice. Only for a heartbeat. Oh? Must have been someone else. I dropped your lunch off but didn't see him. That was it? No hesitation, no nerves. Just a smooth lie like it had been rehearsed. I opened the fridge, grabbed a beer, and closed it with too much force. Must have been, I murmured. She finally turned, pressed a quick kiss to my cheek, and smiled. You're too good for your own good, you know that? That phrase, too good for your own good, it stuck in my mind like a needle. She'd said it before. I used to think it was admiration. Now it sounded like pity. Or worse, contempt. Later that night, I lay in bed beside her, listening to her breathe. Her back was turned. Her phone face down on the nightstand like always now. In the faint light from the hallway, I could see her shoulders rise and fall. Peaceful. Untouched. Mine? Tense. Sleepless. The first seed of a question took root in my head, the one that would grow into something unstoppable. What else have you been hiding? 3 days later, I found myself staring into a pot of my mother's pot roast, wondering how a smell so familiar could suddenly feel so wrong. Sunday dinners at my parents' house had been a Mercer tradition since before I could drive. Even after Lauren and I married, we never missed more than a couple. My mother always made the same dishes: pot roast, green beans with bacon, cornbread warm from the oven. But that Sunday, something was off. The house felt quieter. The conversation lighter, but forced, like everyone was tiptoeing over a floor they knew might crack. Lauren couldn't make it again, my mom asked casually as she pulled the roast from the oven. She's working late. Something about a client presentation, I replied. The words burned my throat as I said them. It was the third Sunday she'd missed in a row. Across the table, my sister Naomi arched a brow. She said, sipping her wine. Lot of client presentations on weekends these days. Naomi, my dad said in a warning tone, folding his newspaper with a snap. Not the time. Oh, I'm sorry, Naomi replied sweetly. I forgot this was the part of the evening where we all pretend nothing is happening. I shot her a look. Naomi. No, she said, setting down her glass. You don't get to glare at me like I'm the problem. I've known something was wrong for months. And judging by the way Mom keeps avoiding eye contact, I'm not the only one. The room went still. My mother busied herself at the counter, stirring the gravy like it might save her. My father cleared his throat and looked down at his plate. That's when it hit me. They knew. Maybe not everything. Maybe not the extent. But they knew enough. And they hadn't said a word. She stopped by last week, my mom said softly after a long pause, still not turning around. To borrow a recipe. Said she wanted to make your favorite chicken and wild rice. Asked if I thought you'd like that. She didn't mention that, I said. No, Naomi cut in, voice harder now. But she did mention Brandon. That name again. I felt my heart drop somewhere near my knees. What about him? My mother turned, finally, holding the gravy boat in trembling hands. She said he's been helping her. With work. Said he's been a rock for her lately. That's what she called him. A rock. She said it like it was a good thing, Naomi added bitterly. Like she didn't realize how much it would hurt to say that to Mom's face. Or maybe she did. I stared at my plate, appetite gone. How long have you all known? My father spoke for the first time. We suspected. Not everything. But we saw changes. The late nights. The way she spoke about Brandon. You should have told me, I said, voice low. And what would we have said? My mother asked, eyes glassy. That your wife isn't who you think she is? That the man you once called brother is helping her break you? I stood up from the table, chair scraping hard against the wood floor. I need air. The cool air hit my face as I stepped onto the back porch, but it didn't clear my head. Not even close. I leaned against the railing, staring out at the garden I helped my father plant when I was 12. Back then, the worst betrayal I'd ever known was my best friend lying about stealing my comic books. Funny how life prepares you in small ways for the big things. I heard the screen door creak behind me, followed by the soft click of Naomi's boots. She didn't say anything at first. Just stood beside me, arms folded tight across her chest like she was holding something in. You mad at me? She asked eventually. I didn't answer right away. You knew. You knew and didn't tell me. I tried, she said. But every time I brought her up, you shut it down. You were so damn sure she was just tired or overworked. I kept thinking maybe I'm being too cynical. Maybe she really is just busy. But then, she paused, taking a deep breath. Then I saw them. That made me turn. What? In February? At that wine bar on Lakeview. I was having drinks with some coworkers. She didn't see me. But I saw her. And him. Same guy you used to call your brother. Hands all over each other like they were celebrating something big. That's when I knew. The world tilted under me again. February? That was 8 months ago. You watched me sit through birthdays, holidays, counseling sessions at the center, and you didn't say a word? I didn't want to break you, she said, and for the first time her voice cracked. I thought maybe it was a mistake. A moment. That she'd stop. But it kept going, didn't it? I didn't answer. I couldn't. The phone in my pocket buzzed then twice, urgently. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something in my gut told me to pick up. Hello? A woman's voice answered, low and strained. Is this Daniel Mercer? Yes. Who is this? My name is Elena Myers. I'm Brandon's girlfriend. Silence. Then. Well, I suppose X now. Naomi's eyes snapped to mine. I know this is strange, the voice continued, but I need to speak to you. It's about your wife. And Brandon. But not just the affair. She paused. I could hear her steadying her breath. It's bigger than that. By the time I left the coffee shop, I wasn't the same man who'd walked in. The betrayal had gone deeper than I imagined, not just an affair, not even just fraud. It was a total erosion of trust engineered by the two people I once trusted most in the world. And I wasn't going to let them walk away from it. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with every document Elena had given me. I cross-checked dates, amounts, and signatures against the center's own financial records. Everything matched. Donation cuts. Missing checks. Canceled programs. All of it traced back to Lauren's signature or Brandon's. And then, I saw something that nearly made me drop my pen. One of the shell companies they were using had a familiar name in its ownership documents, McKinley Retirement Holdings, LLC. My parents' last name. I flipped the page. There it was, Robert and Sylvia McKinley listed as silent investors. I couldn't breathe. They weren't just bystanders. They'd signed something. Maybe they didn't know the full extent, but they were involved. And they'd never said a word. I left immediately, driving across town with the documents clutched in my hand like evidence of a murder. When I walked into my parents' house, my mother was washing dishes. My father sat at the dining table reading the business section. The scene might as well have been painted in lies. I dropped the folder on the table. My father looked up slowly. Daniel, what is this? You tell me, I said, stepping back. Because your names are on the company that's been draining the youth center's accounts dry. My mother turned sharply. Daniel. You knew, I said, voice rising. Or at least you suspected. You watched me work 60-hour weeks trying to keep that place alive while your daughter-in-law and her affair partner siphoned off the money to pay for their luxury lifestyle. And you said nothing. My father swallowed hard. It wasn't like that. Brandon told us it was a family investment. A way to secure our retirement. He said it was legal, my mother added. He promised. He made it sound like it was helping the company grow. I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. You thought you were investing in growth? You were helping them launder stolen donations. Donations meant for underprivileged kids. We didn't know, my father said again, weaker this time. We just wanted to believe him. Well, I said, picking up the folder, you're going to have to believe something else now. The FBI is going to want a statement. And when they ask how deep this goes, I expect you to tell them everything. My mother was crying now. What have we done? You stayed silent, I said coldly. That's what you did. Naomi arrived 10 minutes later. Elena had already called her. She stood beside me, arms crossed, jaw set. I warned you both, she said. I told you something was off. And you let it happen anyway. My father rubbed his face with both hands, shaking his head. We didn't want to believe our family could do something like this. And now the whole damn family's in it, Naomi snapped. So you'd better decide whose side you're on, because Lauren and Brandon's little party is coming to an end. I looked at them both, the people who raised me. You have two choices, I said. Help us make this right, or get swept up with them when it all comes down. The morning of their wedding dawned clear and warm, the kind of day photographers pray for and liars don't deserve. I arrived early. Not to cause a scene, at least not yet, but to make sure everything was in place. The FBI agents were already coordinating near the service entrance of the Grandview Plaza Hotel. Their dark suits and bland expressions were the only thing that didn't match the decor. Inside the ballroom, white roses lined every surface. Crystal chandeliers cast sparkles across the marble floor, and a live quartet was tuning up beside an arch wrapped in gold ribbon. Everything was perfect. Perfectly fake. I stood near the back row, envelope tucked into my jacket. Inside, Sally's exposé, copies of the forged financial documents, marriage licenses, and DNA test results proving Brandon had also gotten Elena pregnant and tried to push her into silence. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a crime scene waiting for the lights to come on. Guests filed in clueless. Executives from tech vents, donors, local politicians. They laughed and sipped champagne. Every toast, every compliment on the decor was one more nail in the coffin of their illusion. Then I saw them. My parents sitting quietly in the second row, pale and stiff. Claire, my sister, beside them, jaw tight, her phone in her lap like a trigger. They had agreed to cooperate with the authorities, provide everything they'd signed, every investment trail. But you could still see the shame clinging to them like smoke. At exactly 11:02 a.m., the music swelled. Lauren entered radiant in a designer dress that could have funded a full year of after-school therapy. Her smile lit up the room. She waved to guests, oblivious to what waited halfway down the aisle. Until it stopped. They never made it to "I do." Lauren froze halfway down the aisle, her bouquet slipping from her hands. Brandon's smile collapsed in real time as two agents stepped out from behind the floral arch, badges raised high. "Brandon Ellis," one of them said, loud and clear. "You're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and bigamy." Gasps rippled across the crowd like a tidal wave. Lauren turned to him in slow motion. "Bigamy," she whispered. Then came the second voice. "Lauren Mercer, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and misappropriation of charitable funds." The music stopped. The air changed. A photographer's flash went off as if to freeze the moment. Lauren standing in a $1,000 dress, mascara streaking as agents read her rights. Brandon tried to bolt but only made it 3 steps before he was tackled at the side exit. And me? I just stood in the back, silent, watching it all fall apart. I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just watched. I had already lost everything worth grieving. The FBI moved efficiently. Guests whispered in disbelief. Lauren kept shaking her head as if denial could turn time backward. Then she looked up and saw me. Her eyes locked on mine. For a second I saw the woman I married. But only for a second. Then something else flickered there. Not guilt. Resentment. As if this was my fault. As if exposing her wasn't justice, but betrayal. They escorted her out of the ballroom. And just like that, the show was over. 3 months passed. Not quickly. Not cleanly. Like molasses over broken glass. There were interviews, depositions, media coverage, and public fallout. My name was dragged through the headlines at first. Husband knew nothing. But the evidence cleared me and the center stood by me. More than that, it rallied. With Lauren and Brandon convicted, restitution funds began trickling back from seized assets. Every dollar came with a paper trail and a quiet apology from the world that let this happen under our noses. The art therapy program reopened first. I'll never forget walking past that room and seeing paintbrushes back in young hands, canvases blooming with color again. Then came the tutoring programs, the mentorships, the food security initiatives. We were rebuilding not just the walls, but trust. And the kids? They didn't ask questions. They just came back. Like maybe they knew instinctively the center had bent, but it hadn't broken. Naomi was the first to volunteer. Then my parents. They gave up what was left of their retirement, sold the house, moved into a modest apartment across town. They came every week to read with kids, help fix pipes, paint classrooms. They were rebuilding too, quietly, brick by brick. Sally, Brandon's ex, and the woman who tipped the first domino, stayed in the picture. Not romantically, but professionally as part of our outreach team. Her journalism instincts helped shape a media program for the teens so they could tell their own stories. No one would silence them again. As for me, I didn't go back to being the man I was before. I couldn't. I became something else. Wiser. Maybe wearier, but grounded. Every time I looked at those kids, I was reminded of the cost of silence and the power of truth. Even the brutal kind. Especially that kind. 1 year later, we hosted an open house at the newly expanded Horizon Haven. The walls were painted with murals by the teens, scenes of growth, of light breaking through darkness. On the front wall, above the main entrance, in bold, hand-lettered words, it said, "Trust breaks. Hope rebuilds." I stood under that mural and let the moment settle in my chest. The music of kids laughing behind me. The warmth of sunlight on my shoulders. My sister smiling from the front steps. my parents handing out flyers, and the voice of Tyrell, the kid who started it all, giving a tour to a group of donors, explaining how every room in the building used to be a hole until it wasn't. None of them mentioned Lauren. Or Brandon. They didn't have to. They were just names now. Names in court records. Names in footnotes. While we were the story that kept going. And in the end, that was the real justice. Not what we tore down, but what we chose to build in its place.